All right, so this is video 2. Please pause this and go back to video 1 and review. There's a lot of things in there that I discussed that are pertinent to everybody that I'm not going to go into more detail about. So I'll jump in here. So you have this really nice, nicely designed headline here, masthead, and I would just move it up because we only have those top 2 inches. So if you move it up, you would be able to see more of the words. I'm guessing maybe you moved it down because you'd like the cover to, or her head to cover part of it. And while that's an interesting thing and a cool trick to be able to do, it's not as important as being able to read this if it were on a rack. This typeface that you've selected, it works really nicely here, but it is much, much more difficult to read in these areas. So I'm going to suggest actually using a different typeface for this section, maybe a nice thin sans serif. You might find Helvetica is helpful. Avenir isn't as thin as Helvetica, but it does have some nice roundness to it that would be a contrast to what you have up here. But I'm losing all of this for contrast because of the typeface and also because of the color. It's a challenge to put someone's face in the middle and to move the content around them in an interesting way. So I think you've started to do that well, but it does, because you have so much empty space, look a little bit unpolished right now. So I would work on thinking about sizing. I don't know that all of this has to be that big. So that might help you with some of the issues. Or even if you just moved her over to the side and you had more space to put your cover lines, that might also make things interesting. You have a lot of space between your lines of text here. Proximity-wise, that tells me that these are different things. So if you want them to all be closer together, I think it would help to move them closer together. And then the word without, I would move it to this next line because we don't really want to have one word on a line by itself. And then you have some more space down here, so I think you can change the size and move this down a little bit lower so it's not leaving all of this empty space at the bottom. Beautiful picture. I love the color. It's very inviting. You have the same kind of issue as the last one, so I'm not going to go into all the detail, but make sure you look at the cover right before yours and move all of this up. This is a little bit large and it has a lot of contrast, and it looks like it's supposed to just kind of be a tagline for this, so I would suggest making that much smaller and not having the yellow there. I like that you're repeating the yellow. You just want to be super intentional with how you use it. So right now I can't, is this 1, 2, 3 cover lines or just one? Because it's so tight to the bowl, it's kind of hard to know, and your other ones are having the same kind of issue. So because we're using so many different typefaces, maybe this one and this one are the same, but they're used differently. So if it's supposed to be all red as one cover line, make sure that there's more uniformity in the typefaces, because every time we see a switch in typeface or a switch in weight, our brain determines that that is a switch in visual hierarchy and proximity. Also, your little dudes up here, these guys are going to get cut off, and this is nice and small, which is fine, but I would also move it up a little bit. This is a really cool picture, so I'm liking that. I'm a little bit confused about what's happening on the page otherwise. So we have lots of extra space that's not being used, but then we have things really stacked tightly on top of the picture and around the picture. So it looks like a magazine cover, it's framed, it has extra space, and that's not really working together at this point. If the issue is the image quality, then I would suggest finding a different issue. If you're trying to go for something different, I think maybe removing this blue line and using more of the space might help. It is really difficult to accomplish that without a lot of high-end magazine research that looks like that. So I like that you're being creative, but right now it's not as cohesive, I think, as it needs to be. Your cover lines here are hard to read, and they're kind of smashing the picture a bit, even though we have all this extra space. And then your UPC code can be smaller and can move down as well. All right, so I see that this magazine is kind of doing something a little bit similar to what I saw in the last one. I think that because it doesn't have that blue line, it is working pretty effectively. The biggest issue right now is that you have so much detail in this black and white picture, I can't read anything that's over the top of it. So if you want to find a picture that has more white space in it, or work on moving some of these into the image or stacking them at the bottom. Some things like that might work for you, but we definitely can't read over the top of that. I like the overall feel. The proximity-wise, these guys need to be closer together. If these are page numbers, they need to be closer together, so we can see that those things are related. This needs to be kind of more stacked because it looks like it's a little bit separated. So work on your proximity, work on your contrast, but otherwise it's looking really good.